You can't plan for that one.
Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. BYU is 9-0, and we're here giving our live reaction to the Holy War game. What a game. I don't even know where to start on this one. I have so many emotions right now. I'm shaking. All I wanted, and I kept saying, I don't care. I just want to beat Utah. We did. And while it was in dramatic fashion, so it was exciting, I'm hyped about that. I'm just hyped about the win. And somebody let me know. I don't know how many days now has it been since Utah has been able to BYU. So we need to get that rolling. But the game was still remarkably unsatisfying. Just the entire game, it felt like everyone was out of sorts, from the coaching staff to the players, and we were just completely shook. But yet somehow hung in there and did just enough to come in and pull out another game-winning play. So very exciting game. Adam, walk all of us through your emotions here.
Oh, I'm all over the place. I mean, that is a rivalry game. I've never. We talked about this a little bit this week. You just don't experience a lot of rivalry games where you just, clean house. That's part of the Holy War, and man, it was intense. I actually, after the Retzlaff sack at the goal line, I turned it off and I went to bed. And
what?
Yes, I said I can't watch. I mean, obviously Utah won at that point. So as I'm going to bed, I'm in the ESPN app and it says something about a 30-yard catch by Roberts, and I'm like, what? And I pull it up and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! So I run back down and watch the end of it. So it was a swing of emotions because I had accepted defeat. Like, I turned it off. I spent a few minutes upstairs knowing we had lost. So I've never experienced that before. That was incredible. Just so unexpected, and for the offense to dig down deep like that is just so tough to do against that defense. And so I don't know if I would call it as unsatisfying as you felt it was. It's kind of what you expect out of the rivalry game. You hope it's not, but it happens every year, and I don't think it's necessarily indicative of of future issues that BYU might have, as much as it is just the nature of the beast when you play that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a perfect storm, and going against BYU, right? And we talked about all this. We thought, well, obviously, we know that as much as we like to rag on Utah, that this team still has talent. There's the fear of, oh, we're getting a backup quarterback who hasn't played before. For BYU's done notoriously badly against that. They've got an amazing running back, and they've got a great coaching staff with 2 weeks to plan. And we thought, okay, look what Oklahoma State did. And sure enough, I mean, those were our two closest games going up against, very similar programs, and,
teams coming off a
all
bye.
tenured coaches expected to be at the top of, going through very similar things right now. And they came out and they played an excellent game. And something we were talking about, I think this last week, was this feels like one of those games, if BYU doesn't get out early and score and start shutting Utah down and really get them to believe, this is a team that's been really struggling. There's been locker room issues. It seems a lot of things, like BYU can get up early and fast and kind of take the crowd out of it, get the Utah team starting to doubt. Then I think BYU could have controlled the game, but it was the exact opposite. We just kept doing enough to keep the crowd into it.
And we couldn't handle the crowd.
Yeah.
It's like we didn't pump crowd noise into our practices or something. They looked so out of sorts when the crowd was wild. And we haven't been in an environment like that, right? We haven't. Closest game on the road we've had is Baylor, and they didn't have a crowd to do that. So BYU has never been in that environment. But everybody on that coaching staff knows what it is to be in the Holy War. So and I'm not saying they didn't prep for that, and sometimes you just can't simulate it, but it looked like we were really unprepared for the moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah, everybody did. And this was one of those teams that, and I want to get to some of these comments here. I got some before we even sign on here. We got 1-2, and he said team of destiny, and it absolutely does feel like that.
It does feel like that. Yeah.
And that is why I believed in this team. I thought any other BYU team, I think I don't know, I would have been a lot more nervous. Now I was nervous this week, but I would have been a lot more nervous for almost any other BYU team going into this. It just felt like one that BYU would cough up somehow. And despite our best efforts, somehow we kept going. But no, it really does feel like this team has a different gear and level of focus. Now they didn't show it most of this game, but I do think this is a special team. All right.
Well, in the second half, 0 points scored. I mean, that defense locked it down and made Utah look like the offense they had been the past few weeks, unlike the first half where they just kept moving the ball.
Yeah. Okay. So what was it? Here were their drives: 4 plays, punt; 2 plays, interception; 9 plays, but only 36 yards, punt; 4 plays, punt; 3 plays, punt; 3 plays, punt. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, but near the end, I mean, my brother texted and said, what is A-Rod calling the Utah's plays now too? Because they were just definitely looked like they were playing to not lose the game. And so, and so obviously I think, well, I'm thinking back to the end of the first half. It's like, man, those 3 points would have been really nice to have from the end of the
Yes.
first half. That was completely
It would have
mismanaged.
changed the entire complexion of the game.
It would have. Now, obviously, Utah would have done some things differently on offense. They wouldn't have just tried to, run out the clock or whatever. But you never know. But obviously, like you said, the entire second half feels very different. So, but it doesn't matter because BYU wins. So I wouldn't go back and change anything now because
That's right.
it's in the books. We won. Like that's all that matters. So I want to get to some of these other comments. So we got John Daughter here. He says sloppy play execution most of the game for BYU, but a win is a win. BYU is now 9-0. Congrats. Yeah, absolutely. A win is a win. And in that sense, it's satisfying. It's just, it's disappointing that we looked like this, but also, it's very satisfying to come back and when Utah thinks they have it in the bag. And it's a good thing when you're down and the other team is calling timeouts to preserve clock at the end of the game. That they're feeling like, okay,
Yeah.
you're about to score, and so that their back is against the wall and they're trying to preserve the clock. So anyway, let's get some other comments here. So John Daughter also says, thank goodness for BYU special teams. Yeah, no kidding. That
Seriously, special teams saved that game. I mean, Papinga's got to be your MVP for prepping his crew like that. Kick return for a touchdown, the field goals. To kick a field goal, man, I mean, I've never been that nervous during a field goal. The amount of field goals kicked in that stadium that that have not gone in for both teams. I'm thinking of Doink in 1997 and 1999. The Payne misses 2 in a row. I mean, we've had so many moments of kicked field goals on that Rice Eccles field that have not gone well for both teams.
well, yeah, what
And
year was it when they were storming the field and we kept getting
yeah,
multiple
yeah,
tries?
2012 or something. And it just, oh my goodness, we've had so many moments like that. And I'm just sick to my stomach that we have to kick a field goal. And boy, Will Farron, tough as nails. I mean, exercise all those demons. And that thing would have been good from 60 yards.
Man,
He's good, man.
yeah,
He's
very
the
good.
best transfer we brought in since going to the Big 12. I mean, I remember when he started that first year, I think it was last year, and everyone's like, "Well, we don't have a kicking game this year. This is going to be ugly." And he has been lights out.
Um, he's been very good. He's definitely up there. I don't know about best. I mean, you got guys like Jack Kelly. I don't know. I'd have to go through the whole list, but he's
Yeah,
definitely up there. And in terms of crucial role, because obviously, our kicking game had struggled a little bit. Even there near the end when Jake, I want to say Jake keeps Jake the Make was
yeah, Oldroyd.
struggling a little bit there near the end, but yeah, it's crucial. And yeah, our special teams definitely did because the offense struggled. I mean, it was an interesting stat. I don't remember if I saw this. I think I saw this on Twitter, if they mentioned it on the broadcast. But Utah had only allowed and I think 6 points off of turnovers. so far this year,
Wow.
which they've had a lot of turnover. So,
Yeah, that's
um,
incredible.
yeah, it tells you. And so, it's great that, oh, well, we just doubled that, but also it's like, man, we couldn't capitalize with a touchdown off of a turnover like that. So that's the frustrating thing. We knew we were going up against a good defense, but I thought that we were going to be able to cause enough havoc. And we did have a couple interceptions, but I thought, I thought their QB, I thought Rose was going to be, look shaky. We were going to be in his head. And instead, Jake Retzloff looked shaky, man. And even when he had a clean pocket, he was
He missed
off
some
on
open
a lot of
guys.
passes, some open
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
Marion a couple times. And
He
uh,
did, and it was frustrating to watch because it was just, and some of it might have been miscommunication with the wide receivers. You never know, but he just missed some open dudes, and not one, not something you anticipate seeing like that. That's the stuff where BYU's been so had such a strong mind through these first 8 games and been so focused. You would hope they come out and at least execute the opportunities they had. Now, if the offensive line isn't holding, or you're thrown under duress, or Utah's just making good plays, that's different. But um, yeah, the offensive struggles were frustrating when they were missing in the way they were missing.
yeah, absolutely. It was, well, actually, I want to get to, we got a lot of comments, and obviously we got more people on here than we normally have. Obviously, we're all excited about the amazing win, another Holy War victory for BYU. That's the real streak that's going on here in the Cold War. So I want to get through some of these comments, but any of you that are new to the channel, please subscribe. We continue to do these live reactions after every game, but we also have on guests and do a kind of know your foe each week breakdown. And then Adam and I also will do a picks and breakdown of the game. We'll go into a little bit more detail and go around the Big 12 a bit. So yeah, subscribe, and also be sure to comment. We do this so we can get the conversation, we can get people involved, and all celebrate together, because this is a special season. And so we want to get as many Cougar fans together as possible and celebrate that. So looking here, we have Cougar says, I can't believe it. Go Cougs. Cougar, believe it, because it happened, and it's in the books. And Whittingham was furious at the refs over the holding call. I don't care. They kept talking about, oh, this one's going to always be talked about between the fans about the holding call. And that annoyed me, because I thought, what about in the first half with the face mask?
Yes.
Which I understand why
Yes.
it looked like it, because his head jerked. Oh, that's almost always a face mask.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And that was they even said it on the broadcast. That was like a 25-yard a swing, right? As well as,
Big
the
time.
down. So it
Well,
was.
and then another holding call against BYU and Keanu Hill on that drive where we muffed at the end of the second half and couldn't get a field goal off. That holding call was huge, and it was just as bad as the one they called on Utah. Because I agree, the one they called against Utah towards the end of that game, that didn't look great. That's not a great holding call, but it was exactly what they called against Keanu Hill at the end of the half. And so that's either a makeup call, or that's how they're calling it this game. And I think the refs did a poor job on both sides, and in the first half at least, that went against BYU time and time again.
Yeah, that, or Brett Yormark saw, hey, I see what the ACC is doing for Miami here. Maybe we took up a little bit of that action, and if so, I appreciate it, Brett.
Yeah.
But yeah, Witt will be furious. If this ends up being his final season, how satisfying is it to end on a 2-game losing streak to BYU, going
Right.
out like that?
Yep.
I hated that Bronco. I felt like destiny that Bronco was going to win that bowl game, when he was going to get one more shot at Utah,
Yeah.
when we weren't supposed to play him and he was leaving.
Yep.
It just felt like it was meant to be. It was not, which was
Nope.
apparent very early in that game. But
Yeah.
because even though BYU clawed back and I was hopeful, that was because Utah was kind of calling off the dogs a little bit on that game, and BYU did have a shot there, but anyway, 1-2 says BYU's worst performance all season, absolutely, and one of Utah's best all season. Yeah, probably true. Winning in this situation is huge positive sign for this team going forward. Yeah, so like I said, it's frustrating, it's unsatisfying, and it's not so much that it was a close game. It was that it didn't have to be, that BYU did things so poorly in so many instances. Now, I don't know what Jay Hill told to the defense in the locker room, but that the defense was nails in the second half.
Seriously. Yeah.
And that's
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that I think right there saved the game from getting out of hand.
Yeah, well, it did. I mean, that was the fact that they scored 0 in the second half was huge. I was really confused at our approach in the first half and our inability to adjust when Utah came out with their game plan, because it felt like we were rushing 3 or 4 so often, and when we did blitz, we'd usually get home, or or we'd make him hit a check down, or it seemed like good things would happen the few times we did blitz, but we blitzed so few times in the first half. It was mind boggling. I don't know what Jay Hill saw, and and he sees infinitely more than I do on the field. So but it was driving me nuts. It just felt like we were sitting back and allowing them to press, giving up 3 to 4 yards a rush, and we weren't getting gouged, but it was enough that they could move the ball down the field, and it was so confusing when we've had so much success this season wreaking havoc on quarterbacks like Rose, who don't have a ton of experience. And then in the second half, the mindset just switched. We started blitzing, and he looked pretty banged up by the end of the game. We've done that to most of our opposing quarterbacks, and I feel for him by the end of the game because they all look beat up, and Rose was no different.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I don't have anything to add to that. So Spencer here, from Spencer Reads Everything. Sorry, you texted and I was not in the mood to respond at the time, buddy. But he says, on one hand, I am so disappointed in so much of how BYU played. On the other hand, I do not care. It's all about the final score. Go Cougs. Yeah, absolutely. That's ultimately all that matters. And not so much well, for so many reasons, obviously the holy war, but with the perfect season on the line. Now BYU still would control its own destiny getting to the conference championship game. And it kind of feels like whoever, like they were even saying on the broadcast, but it feels like the Big 12 is a one bid conference to the playoff this year, no matter what. And so even with
Yeah.
a in-season loss, BYU still controls its own destiny to get to the conference championship game, in which case, once there, it's that game and it's going to determine. So having the one loss really doesn't seem like it would change the outcome. The only thing that it could really change is perhaps allowing a team like Boise State to pass them in the ranking, getting the bye in the first round. So it's not necessarily like lights out, but man, could you imagine having like a perfect season, going to the playoff or doing whatever, or otherwise perfect season, but having that one loss in the regular season to Utah? And so they would always use that. Yeah, we lost, but we weren't that good and we still beat you. And
Yeah.
so glad we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So very glad. David Chase, did anyone else crap their pants? I would rather not say, but I'm pretty sure we were at least close to it.
I almost cried for the first time at a BYU game. I'm not one that's moved to tears very easily, but man, when that field goal went through, it was a moment.
I wonder which game would you compare this to, like the emotions and like the setup and everything, and like had BYU lost, like which one would this feel the most like?
Had they lost?
Yeah.
Oh, 2012 would feel somewhat similar. Not that we were having a magical season then, but just that how close it was, an opportunity to win at the end of the game that you couldn't pull out. Defensive battle. That's kind of where I compare it to, where we had a couple in that era. Because it wasn't like the Max Hall 8 interception game or the Jake Heaps game or things like that. Like it wasn't to that degree where we just didn't have a chance. It just felt like we couldn't put together enough execution to just get it done. And we were this close, and had a couple things not gone against us, we would have been fine. And so that's kind of where it felt to me. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't know. One that just feels, it's not similar in the way it played out, but one that just hurts the most recently, I think, is from 2018, just because BYU had been up, but BYU was, up for a little while, but it never felt like that where BYU was up by a lot. But that one just hurt having it ripped away.
Yeah.
But the expectations going into that game were low. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you talk about. I think the which year did you say with Max Hall? 2008.
Yeah.
That one was rough. It wasn't a similar game, but it was rough because um, BYU was good. This is when both teams were playing at the a really good football, and the best of the G6 at the time, right? And so I don't know. I don't know. Let us know in the comments because I'm kind of curious what other people think of it. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
I think you
games
got to
where,
throw in the 2016
oh,
Jason
that's
Mills.
probably the closest.
That's another one that comes to mind. Is that one kills you when you're going for two. I like the call to go for two that year. I don't mind that, but I didn't like the play call. That was running into the
Especially
teeth
with
of that
Jamal
defense.
Williams injured.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
it left it. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to think about that. Yeah, there's a lot of the last decade that I've kind of blocked out,
I
honestly.
blocked out a lot of them. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get back to the comments here. So, because there's a lot to get through. So, Roy Wall says even Kalani was shaking in the shoes in the first half. He made bad decisions like going for the fourth down, which you just mentioned. Or no, you were talking about the 2 point. We survived. Go Cougars. Yeah, the fourth down. I have mixed feelings on that. I kind of wouldn't, but it's something BYU's done all season. We've gone for it on other situations, and I wonder if he's thinking or maybe he didn't maybe he's just like, this is what we do. But it's kind of one of those things like, do we show some confidence in this team and like let them get going? But I don't know. I would have probably just trusted the defense in this case, knowing that our offense is going to have a tough time. I don't know. Would you have gone for it on fourth
I
down?
like it. I like the aggression. The analytics say go for it, but I don't like it because of that. I like it because of what it instills from a
Right.
psychological standpoint in your team, and it's that attitude of aggression. I think that's why the analytics say go for it, is because you end up with that intangible momentum on your side when you can do that. And if you miss, there's still a belief in your team. Your coach called your number, and there's a motivation to make up for that. And so. I don't mind the call. I would have done it, but you get burned sometimes when you go forward on fourth, and it puts you in a tough circumstance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was kind of mixed. I didn't completely hate it, but the execution on it. Here we have Ben and Jim Heithoff that says that shouldn't have been a holding call. Whose side are you on? Where? No, I'm kidding. No, you're right. It wasn't the most egregious. I don't really know. It's hard because there's a lot of those types of holds that probably happen every game, but they're usually not like in the frame of the camera, so it's hard to see and say, oh, they always do that or not. But yeah, it didn't seem totally egregious, but I don't know. Maybe it was a makeup call. I'll take it.
I
Um,
don't know. I don't know that it was a makeup call or not. And to be honest, um yeah, it's that's a tough makeup call in those circumstances. I'd hope there was something there that they saw. I haven't seen the replay of it. Like I said, I was trying to go to bed. So I didn't even know there was a penalty. So
yeah,
it took me a while to track back on the game to see what happened. Um, but so ESPN's showing the replay right now. Actually, yeah, yeah, that's hold. He pulls on him. He pulls on him, and then he's pushing him 7 yards down the field. You know you can't do it. There's some impact at the line for sure that you allow, but um, anyway,
yeah. Again, I don't know what they're seeing, versus what like it usually looks like. But and I have to go back and watch that again. But there's some back and forth. Roy Wall says, and there wasn't a face mask in the end of the first half either. Um, I agree.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and then we have, let's see here. Madman Mark 08 says, what an ending. Yeah, it really was. I mean, compare this, Adam, to the ending of this game to Oklahoma State. Obviously, the stakes are a little different because this is against our rival. But how would you compare them?
Oh, to me, 1,000 times more impactful. Just because of the context, the context of the game. You're going against your rivals. We've had recent struggles all through the 2010s, and so to pull this out this late in the season in such improbable circumstances. I know we got a 4th and 10 conversion against Oklahoma State, but in this one to be saved by that holding penalty, and I just, to me, this one, it's a swing of emotions no matter what. These are exciting games and fun to be a part of, but this one to me had a bigger impact.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of staying with this 1-2 says refs blew that the fake mask call, giving Utah a TD. So I don't want to hear complaints from Utah fans on the 4th down defensive holding, which was real, preventing any chance for a receiver to go up the field. Yeah, I mean, we just covered all that, and absolutely, Utah fans are going to try to use that, and I don't think BYU fans are going to want to hear it at all. So
Yeah.
this is a great comment that I want to get to. Scott Mansfield says BYU player swapping almost cost us the game. There must be better time management. So if they had
Yeah.
BYU had to know that this is something that Utah does,
Yes.
because BYU even did it to Utah, and it seemed like intentionally. And so, how are you not prepared for that or understanding? Hey, time is important here. Let's just get our guys in and run our plays. I mean, um, who was it that they were swapping out every time? I don't know, but the fact that they didn't adjust that later in the game still is mind-boggling.
Well, and I remember, I think it was on Locked On Cougars this week. They were talking to Connor Pay about it and saying, "Hey, have you guys thought about doing that?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he just seemed unfamiliar with the concept. He's like, "I guess we don't really pay attention to that." It just seemed foreign to him. And now that it was so impactful in the game, it did seem like a blind spot for BYU. You'd expect them to be a little bit more on top of it. Because and Utah's done this for years. I mean, it's legal, it's gamesmanship. It's kind of a punk move, kind of a cheap move, but it is legal. It's not like you're inducing a penalty by walking your subs on and off the field.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't like it, but it's within the rules, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's not the same thing that Oregon did in that other game that I think they've already now changed the rules on that, where they intentionally took the penalty to get the time run off because the time
Yes,
was
yes, they
more
did
valuable.
change.
Right.
They did change the rules on that already. I mean, that was smart on
Yeah.
on Oregon's side. I mean, that was really sort of like 4D chess level of football strategy. I had to read through the concept a few times before I actually understood what was going on.
Yeah. It made me think of was it the Titans or who was it that like allowed a touchdown so that they could get the ball back in time so they could score again? I
Yeah.
don't know. So anyway, so let's keep moving here. We've got Taz Play RL. A-Rod almost sold with his crazy plays. Not every play has to be revolutionary. Yeah, it definitely felt like they just needed to simplify things at the end there when Jake just was missing wide open receivers and things were complicated. Uh, I don't think there's any attempt at a trick play though in this game, which kind of
Mm-mm.
surprised me.
Yeah, that surprised me too.
Maybe it just wasn't open for it, or maybe because the way we were playing, who knows, the way they were blitzing, maybe they just weren't seeing the looks that they wanted to. But and then this is Scott Mansfield. I think we got to this already, but we should have had another 3 at the end of the first half. Yeah, that was killer. I mean, when you go back to mismanaging the clock and everything, it was painful to watch. So
It
um,
was. It was. The clock management, I think, was of all of our struggles, that one was disappointing because you expect your players who are in there to be amped up and trying to control their nerves and all that, and you want the coaches to go in there and be the voice of reason and calming presence, and that's where the clock management issues came from, whether it's getting the play in on time or the timeouts. And there were a few times where we call timeout to avoid the delay of game, and it's like 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 10, and I'm thinking, you know what, the playbook doesn't change that much between 3rd and 10 and 3rd and 15. Just take the penalty, save the
right,
timeout. The timeout's precious. So
right.
go for a 3rd and 15, or instead of a 3rd and 10 and wasting a timeout. It bothered me a little bit that just kept happening. It seemed where they couldn't get the play in on time, and so then we'd use the timeout to save the 5 yards. It's like, just at some point, just take the 5 yards, hang on to those timeouts.
Yeah. I was just reading this next comment. I've spoken says that, and this is just what we were covering, but I wanted to read the comment. That was a fun game, even though BYU didn't play like they played at UCF. LOL. Yeah, that would have been nice. What's up with the late swapping of players? It was clean, but a win in that place with the noise was amazing. Yeah, so you know, it wasn't perfect by far, and hopefully BYU can learn a lot from it and clean up. Now, we're not going to probably play in that kind of environment again for the rest of the season. Maybe ASU, but I doubt it. So fortunately, yeah, we've got 2 at home and then 1 in Arizona, and then future games. Hopefully, I think BYU travels well. I wouldn't expect anything to be quite this wild. So,
Yeah.
bowl game or whatever. So that's the good news. But at least they were able to pull together there at the end. And the drive where they ended up scoring the touchdown and then not getting the 2-point conversion. I mean, they just look good on that. Now, obviously, then after that, Utah they knew they were going to be passing it, and they locked in and took away some of that, but still came through in the end when they had to. Taz Platty RL says time management was pitiful at the half. Yeah, absolutely. Scott Mansfield says ugly night, but the U's defense played great all night. They were very good.
That is a good defense.
Yeah.
There's a reason that's the best defense we'll face all year. I mean, they are very, very good.
Yeah, and it's the reason why it's the fewest points scored by BYU this year, and thank goodness we've got great special teams. So, because the offense was not getting it done on their own. All right, Freedom USA 1982 lost my bets, but at least BYU won. Hey, that's all that matters. how much did you bet? But hopefully not too much. But yeah, BYU wins. That's what matters. Scott Mansfield says BYU needs to counterfill out blitzes better. Yeah, they were. I don't know. It didn't seem like they had a lot of answers for that. They got a little bit better at picking up the blitz there at the end. But what did you think about that? Their protection there.
The protection was not good on that last drive. I mean, you look at the first 4 plays of that last drive were really ugly. All of them, Retzlaff had somebody in his face, and it's hard to say. It felt like the running backs who were stepping up to block linebackers were just getting schooled. And typically Ropati and Martin are pretty good there. But you had a middle linebacker coming up the blitz or coming up on an A gap blitz that the running back had to pick up, and they just kept missing. So that was really concerning at the end. And I don't know if that's Utah's athleticism or the fact that they're just bringing so much pressure, and their corners were good enough to make it so there's not an obvious open throw downfield. I don't know what it was. It hasn't been an issue all year, so it's not something that's hugely concerning. I think you chalk it up to playing a great defense in a tight circumstance, but something to watch moving forward, because I think everybody's got Retzlaff profiled by now, right? He's great in play action. He's great when he has time. He struggles at times against the blitz. So you're going to see more and more of
that. Okay. Appreciate it. Sorry, I was going through the comments here, and I'm realizing just how far behind we are. So I'm not going to be able to get to all these comments. If you really want to have a comment read or highlighted here, there's the super chats. If you guys want to do that, I've never asked for that before because it hasn't been necessary, but I'm going to try to get through as many of these as possible, at least on topics we have.
Let's go rapid fire, Trevor.
Yeah, I'm going to go through this. So Taz Platty RL says the U is so different in a rivalry game. Also, Brennan Rose is insane. Exactly what the Utes have needed. I hope they go 8-4. I don't know if I.
They'd have to go 7-5 now. So just a score correction, they have to go 7-5. Yeah, win out, Utah. Win out.
All right, bullseye. Magic happens.
Yes, magic happens.
I feel like I've heard that before. Here's another comment. The U from Scott Mansfield again. The U held our linemen all night. If you watch the film, I will be interested to go back and see that.
Yeah, this is one I want to watch again. I felt like the officiating struggled mightily, way more than any of our other games.
This one is interesting. From Taz Platty RL says the Utes were acting like they actually were having fun on the field, and I agree. Like they looked loose, and I mean they didn't have anything on the line. They were playing to ruin our
Yeah.
season.
So Utah played like the team that had nothing to lose, and
Mhm.
BYU played like a team that had everything to lose, and that's exactly how it was. And so Utah went out there and just left it all on the field because you're on a 4-game losing streak. You're 4-4. This is your rivalry game. This is your Super Bowl. You got nothing to lose, and you felt that through 3 quarters.
Um, yeah, but what's ironic though is that at the end of the game, Utah was playing like the team trying not to lose because they were up, trying to hold on to that lead, and they started playing tight, and BYU went in, and what did they do? They came out with the win. So I like this one. Zachary Wilson, I believe I know a Zach Wilson. I'm trying to remember where, but he says our kicker will never have to buy another meal in Provo again. That's true. I mean, when we talk about Jake Oldroyd, I mean, that legendary kick coming in cold against Arizona was legendary, but this was over Utah and may help us keep the perfect season alive. I mean,
I
this is a
don't know. Yeah, I don't know another kick that's had more on the line than this. I don't. And it could have happened, but I'm trying to think through BYU history when there's been more on the line. You're maintaining your perfect season. You're at your rival Utah. You have this sort of miracle drive happening. It's not like it was a 60-yarder, but it was. That's as pressure filled a kick as you get, and kicks we have historically missed in that rivalry game.
Well, and I was texting, on my thread with my brothers, and I was like, "Don't put it on the kicker. Let's just score a touchdown."
That's what I wanted. Just punch it in the end zone. I was just hoping that last handoff to LJ to set up the field goal would somehow spring for a TD or close to it, because I just did not want to leave it to a field goal. I mean, I haven't experienced stress in a football game like that for way too long.
Man, one thing I'll say though, since we're talking about punching in, LJ Martin, there are times that he just pulls something out of nothing. He is just incredible.
Yes.
And as hard as I've been on Hinckley Rapati, I have not been in his corner for a lot of this season. The last few games, he's really, shown that he's got more there on the run game. He's done better. I think a lot of times he's in there for the pass blocking and things. He's such a big dude, but he certainly has, busted out some good runs as well. So,
I mean, the speed option run to set up the field goal was huge, huge. And the thing that gets me about Rapati is it feels like he lacks vision, certainly not athletic talent. I mean, he runs hard, he's fast, he's low to the ground, he hits people, he falls forward, all those things you want. Sometimes it just feels like he misses the hole or he misses a block. But when it clicks for him, he is effective, and I agree. I think the last couple games he's done a lot better in that, and had that crucial run on the speed option, because it wasn't. It was decently blocked, but it's not like it was wide open like that speed option had been before. He had to make a couple cuts, make a couple guys miss, and brush off some tackles.
Yeah. This is going back just a second, but Taz Platty RL, Will Farron is actually him. Yes, absolutely. Yep. And then we've got not alternate, I'm guessing, or not alternate. Says BYU's 100th year of football. President Nelson is 100 years old, 40 years since the 1984 BYU national title, 40 years since President Nelson became an apostle. Feels like destiny's stars are aligning. And I've got to say, I've already spoken to my wife about this, and now don't tell on me to anyone, but I already told her if BYU wins a national championship, I will get a BYU tattoo. Now I realize that this is very low stakes because I honestly haven't even allowed myself to think past the Big 12 championship game and what might be there. I realize it's low stakes, but I told her at some point you just got to, you got to put something on the line there, be committed. But so here I'm on the record now, and
it's official.
It's official. Let me also say that I'm not actually too worried about having to follow through on this. But all right, so Um, let's see. Oh, why did we keep trying to run it up the middle? Sorry, Cougar says when it never worked. Yeah, I don't know. There was something. I guess it's in. I think because it's been a great component in the team earlier in the season when we've been able to get up the middle, whether it's Jake in the QB keep or he handoff or whatever. It's I think it really helped open things up. And when we think about last year when we couldn't go up the middle at all and we're stuck trying to go around the edges, which that wasn't even working every time either. That I think they kept trying to think at some point we're going to wear this defense down and we're going to open up a hole and we're going to go, is my guess. But those holes never really open. That defense is just too good.
It is, and there's more. The thing about running up the middle is you have to be willing to go there at times in order to set up some play action at some point. And so even when it's not effective and you're only getting a yard or you're losing a yard, you have to be able to show the defense you're willing to do it in order to have any effectiveness in the play action. Now, your play action is way less effective when you only get a yard, right? Because you're not going to really draw on the linebackers too much because your defensive, their D line is taking care of it. But I understand why you're going there. BYU's offense is predicated on effective play action, and so you have to do it. But that is the teeth of that defense, and they're so good there. And yeah, there just wasn't much movement for the Cougars there.
No. Payson Cougar fan says, I guess Satake paid his tithing. I guess so. Good thing. Because I don't know what the exact number is, but I think it's a hefty sum. So, Don Koenig, I'm sorry, I probably butchered that. I give Utah a lot of credit. They played their best game of the year. BYU had luck on their side tonight, but they still had to create this magical ending. Go Cougs. I mean, yeah, where does this fall in line as far as magical endings? Because this was not like a glorious performance, but BYU did enough to pull it out.
No, but I think it's easy to forget in 2006, BYU underperformed that whole game. I mean, they were favored going into Rice-Eccles Stadium, and they should have beat that Utah team by double digits. And instead, they need a last-second drive and a Beck to Harleen in the last second of the game to win that game. So I think looking back, this is up there. At least for me, this is up there with Beck to Harleen, Andrew George in overtime. Type moments. 4th and 18. I mean, there's been some iconic moments, and for me, this is right up there with them, to be able to pull this out like this and the Wolf Aaron field goal.
Here we've got Airstrike 480 Cornhole says, as a BYU fan, I'm scared that BYU will go to the playoffs and get utterly destroyed by an SEC or Big Ten team. How do you think the Big 12, BYU and Big 12 teams in general stack up against these other conferences? Because,
well, so I'm not afraid we go and get destroyed. It's tough. Those are great teams. You take the Big 12 champion going up against an SEC champion or one of the top two teams in the SEC. Yeah, I mean, I don't see us winning comfortably. I see us having to pull out, something last minute against a team like that because the level of athletes they have are that's an intimidating spectrum. So I understand the perspective, but I'm not afraid of just getting boat raced in those games. I think BYU has shown they can hold their own. I don't think an SEC defense is any better than the Utah defense that we just faced. And we struggle for different reasons, right? The lack of execution and organization being in a rivalry game. So I think that we could remain competitive. Do I look at those games and think, oh yeah, I really like BYU in those games? No, because those are teams that they've been to the playoff before. They've got they've got still more depth than we do. They've got a lot of advantages. But do I think we can go out there and compete and make it a game? Yeah, absolutely. I think this BYU team has shown they can compete with anybody in the country on any given night.
Yeah, I think so too. There's a lot that makes this team special. What really annoys me about the rankings and the way they look at this is it's funny how BYU gets dinged for a close loss or a close win over Oklahoma State when Miami got bailed out twice against, middling programs off of very controversial calls. BYU went and won that game fair and square. There was no controversy about that, and they just went out there and executed. Now there is a controversial call at the end of this game, which again, we can debate that, but it'll always be debated. And I saw here we had a comment from JB, the Utah athletic director, just said that the game was stolen from them, and that he regretted joining the Big 12. So I went to look up the comments, but he says, I've been an athletic director for 12 years. This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not.
Wow.
We won this game. Someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the Big 12 conference commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight. Thank you. Coming in hot.
Wow.
Yeah. What was that video you're talking about the conference,
how to rival better?
Yeah. It seems like they should have maybe made a note about this, making comments like this afterwards. Yeah. We're always going to hear about this. But there are so many games that were weird and that I had complaints about too. Now, again, like I said, I kind of blocked a lot of this last decade out of my memory, but I know every single game, it's like, yeah, but there was and there's
every game. I mean, that you've got 120 snaps in a given game at least, right? And you can't point to one of them to say the game was stolen. What about all the times Utah had the ball in the second half and they could have scored anything, field goal, touchdown, anything, and that game would have been totally different. And so that's got a sore loser feel to it, to that statement. Obviously reacting emotionally in the moment. He's probably thinking this is K-Witt's last game. So I get it. And his job is tied into this, so he's got a lot more invested than I do just as a fan. But can't be making comments like that after the game. I don't disagree that the officiating was bad throughout. I thought it was really bad throughout, but I felt like it negatively affected both teams. And that holding call, it's not like it was some phantom holding call where nothing happened. He grabbed the dude and threw him down and pushed him 7 yards into his route. I mean, there's something there. Call it holding, call it whatever you want to call it. Something happened that should have been called. I mean, what about earlier in the game and on the first or second drive when somebody grabs Retzlaff and throws him after he pitches an option play? No call. I mean, it happened on both sides, negatively affecting both sides. It just happened to negatively affect Utah in the most crucial of moments.
So that's the one that's going to be talked about and remembered. But
yes.
Yeah.
But they struggled throughout the game.
It's ironic when he's criticizing other people's professionalism when making a comment like that. Yikes. So let's see here. So Todd Hawker says, is nobody going to talk about how Utah seemed to be able to read BYU all the way through the game? Utah was supposedly playing like crap most of the season so far. Now they are all over BYU.
Okay, so I did notice a couple plays where Retzlaff would step up to the line, to audible to his line, and the middle linebackers for Utah would step up and listen to what he was saying, very clearly listen to what he was saying, and then turn around and talk to their guys. So is there
yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah. So is there some sign stealing? Are these programs so close and so intertwined that they can share stuff like that? Is there something like that going on? And is that why BYU struggled so much offensively? Because Utah had their plays. I mean, I'm not accusing a Michigan Ohio State scandal here to that level, but it just felt like they would listen in and they knew our calls. And is that on us for not altering our calls enough? Is that, I don't know, but it felt weird like that when I haven't seen it so deliberate to watch those linebackers step up, listen to the audible, and then turn around and tell audible then to their team, not based on what they're seeing, but based on what Retzlaff is saying.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I was surprised the commentators didn't address it because there was one play in particular. I'm trying to remember what the situation was, but he went up, he called an audible, they did whatever, and then the defense just completely switched. And so, yeah, there was something. Let's see. Got several more comments here, and maybe we talk about this. I've seen a few on this, but talking about who you think we'll see in the conference championship game. here prediction is Colorado be 38-35. I mean, who do you think we'll see, and who do you want to see?
I think it'll be Colorado based on how they're playing. Um, I would take Colorado over Kansas State. But boy, a conference championship game feels so far away right now. I
Yeah, I
know
know.
if
It might
we
be a
if
little.
we lose one in the next 3 games, we're still in, right?
Yeah.
And that sounds plausible that we could do that. But man, it's every week is a nail biter. You watch how many big time teams lost this week. It's, college football is awesome, and it's terrifying to be in this circumstance. We're never in this circumstance, and it is terrifying to be on top to watch these mighty programs fall every week. You watch Miami and Georgia lose this week, and you just think, "Oh man, I hope we can pull it out." And we're living by the skin of our teeth, but let's just let's do Kansas, then we'll talk Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Kansas, we've been talking about this all season about how they've been in every game, and now they're finally turning the corner where they're able to turn those close games into victories. And this time against who was supposed to be a very good Iowa State team who's now struggling a bit. So it's hard to say, but we'll talk more about Kansas this upcoming week. So if you haven't subscribed, so you can come check us out. We'll get this early to mid next week. We'll wait till after the latest playoff committee, you know, not poll, but rankings come out. So, yeah, so come back and we'll discuss that some more. I'm with you. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but yeah, BYU does control their own destiny right now, which is the good thing. Scott Mansfield says, let's admit the U has been in BYU's psyche for 20 years. We spot them 10 points every time we play them from our inferiority complex. Now, the nice thing is there were no interceptions. There was no pick sixes in this game. Now, Jake did have, and there were some comments mentioning that, and his fumble and then almost coughing it up. And I think this was on Twitter. Just somebody was commenting how, that the way it was positioned, it could have been a scoop and score. It would have had flashbacks of, Oklahoma. And so, fortunately, we did land on it. There were a couple moments. Jake just looked rattled most of the night. But again, he had enough to come away with it, and at the end of the day. So,
Yeah, and I would say in that you see the growth and maturity of Retzlaff, because when he looked rattled at other times, he really cost us. And he looked rattled, but he still played within himself to a certain degree. I didn't see him shot putting the ball to the other team. I felt like his fumbles, he could have been a little bit better on ball security and hold it high and tight. But it didn't look so egregious in the moment. And so even though he was out of sorts, he was able to put it back together after that 4th and 10 holding call, and then hit Roberts for 30 yards down the field, or the hesitation to pull the defensive end in before he pitched out to Rapati on the read option, or on the speed option that sprung Rapati for 13 yards and put us in field goal range. That was a great decision. That was a great play. The little things like that I think are underappreciated. And he comes having a pretty shaky game and puts it together in the final 2 minutes for a miraculous drive.
yeah, miraculous is right. Freedom, concatenations.
Concatenations.
Thank you. I shouldn't. I didn't realize I should have sounded that word out before I put that up on the screen. But you're always busting out a word I've never heard of before, almost on every video. So at least one. So I should have just had you read it from the beginning. But the rest of the season is gravy. Beat Utah. That's the only thing that matters. You lose 100% successful season. I disagree with this take. I think the rest of the season we've got some places where we could have pitfalls. Again, we just talked about Kansas. That would be interesting to see how BYU responds after this week going into that game. But also, I saw people posting early in the season, maybe before. It's like, hey, if you could trade now a win over Utah, or winning the conference championship, what would you? Or going to the conference championship game or something, what would you take? I was like, yeah, I would take a loss to Utah and a guaranteed spot in the conference championship all day. That's what it's all about. I mean, yeah, would it suck to have Utah? Yeah, but we beat. Okay, but we got where it really mattered. And right now, BYU still in position to do that, and we got to beat Utah. So glad I didn't have to make that decision preseason. So let's see. We've talked about this, but yeah, John Daughter, BYU special teams is what won it for them. If we're speaking in Utah terms here. All right. I had another question for you, and now I forgot. But yeah, another one about the special teams from Todd Hawker. Being a special teams coach, must have been responding to some other comments. But yeah, I mean, he's just been. I don't know what he's doing with them, but it's working.
It's awesome.
Hey.
What Rebel said, it's been since '89. We had 2 kick returns in a season. I mean, really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That was an awesome one. I mean, I don't know how that lane got so open for him, but he just saw it. He just took off. It was fantastic. That's another one I'll be excited to see more angles from. But Glenn Lumen says, listening from the Philippines. Well, thank you for listening and joining us. It's, I guess, probably a much more reasonable hour for you right now than it is for us. So
that's awesome.
Let's see. Ryan Wilkinson says, it baffles my mind that Utah AD thinks that a player can commit a penalty and it just shouldn't be called because it's 4th down. Not to mention the absolutely horrible face mask called against BYU. Yeah, we beat this to death, but it's just that's not going to go away. Utah fans are going to be griping about that forever, I think.
Yep. Long time.
Wow. But it's okay because we're going to rivalry better. What was that?
We're going to rivalry better. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Here we've got Oaksterhawk says, I had bet on Utah and the officials lost control of the game early. Utah definitely got advantage from zebras early. But, I mean, if you took the line, what was it, BYU by 3? So if you just took that.
BYU didn't cover the spread for once.
Right. So that's how betting works, right?
It's funny how it did feel like the refs lost control, but there weren't all-out fights. There weren't a ton of personal foul. There were some personal foul calls. And that was a funky. What's with the personal foul on the Utah bench at the end of the game? Like, what does that even do? Because they threw a flag on the kickoff. On the squib kick when Utah was lateraling it, and everybody's like, hang on, there's a flag, and then come out, they're like, personal foul on the Utah bench, game's over. I'm like, what?
That's okay. I'm glad they got one more. They got called out. So yeah, that was weird. The game is not over yet. They had to do that at the end of the first half too. Yeah, it did seem like it got out of control for them, which I guess, a game of this magnitude, the Big 12 isn't used to this,
No, they're not. No, they're apparently not. I mean,
but yeah, maybe they should have brought in some.
You'd think from Bedlam, Oklahoma State would have prepped him for this. I mean, there was some insane games there. But
yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it was a bit out of control. But like you said, it didn't get overly chippy, which is good. There were a couple moments when it looked like it could have, but they kept in line. And there were some times when, they could have been real quick to call a 15-yard penalty, but I think that just would have escalated things. And because, people
could have
frustrated until I didn't see anything that was too egregious. So that on both sides. So I thought those probably good no calls, but I don't know. All right, here, you guys, I'm sorry. The comments keep coming in. I'm trying to get through everybody. Again, if you really got something you want read, you can super chat. I've never done it, so I don't know how it works, but I think you click on it and send it in. But for the most part, I think we've covered a lot of these topics already. 1-2 says Kyle Whittingham pushed over a chair as he walked off the podium after speaking for less than 3 minutes. Time to retire, buddy. Rivalry better. I got to go watch that. Seeing him
emotional loss for the Utes. They're just not accustomed to these, right? We went through the 2010s and we had a handful of these. So I pushed a chair over after 2012. Okay, I did it. I'm trying to be better.
But you're also not the head coach and on camera and,
Yeah, it's just a little different.
and with these kids, these are students, these are kids. I mean, everyone aside from Cam Rising are all, but you're supposed to be this,
It would have been different, man, if they had that 30-year-old quarterback. If Cam Rising had played, same thing in 21. If Cam Rising had only played,
They say that too, but that's also on the coaching staff. That's something that gets me because it's like, you know what? The coaching staff had time to prepare for that game. They let the team practice and they decided who to put in at quarterback.
oh
And they
yeah,
decided that was their best chance. Like that's part of coaching is knowing who to put in. And that's what the coaching staff, even though it was a well thought out race all summer, they went with Jake and look, what the results have been. So
yep,
you can't just what if that. I mean, maybe the game's different, who knows, but obviously the game would have been different, but who knows about the outcome. So Cougar, we talked about this a little bit ago, but he says they absolutely knew our audibles. Jake was changing the play. Absolutely. Something was going on there and it needs to be looked into before other teams do it. Yeah. You
agreed.
got to figure out what that was all about. So uh, the alternative hypothesis regretted joining the Big 12, like he would prefer to stay in the Mountain West or Pac. He can go back to the Pac 12.
Hey,
What
Pac-12's alive. It's alive and well. They'd take Utah in a heartbeat.
they're looking for, I think, another full time.
They need one more, or they're not a real conference. So
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thanks to Scott Mansfield for the super chat there. There's no comment attached to it, but I think we've read several of your comments tonight. So, yeah, thank you for the super chat. And then NL Quinn says, what was the end of the game unsportsmanlike call? Oh, we were talking about that.
yeah, I think it
Was
was just
there,
their team walking on the field during the play,
yeah,
something like that. I mean, the sideline infraction that just got egregious. They didn't explain it. They just said unsportsmanlike on the Utah bench. Game's over. So I was
yeah.
as confused as anybody.
Well, in the moment you see that you have to throw the flag. The flag was there, so they had to confer. They just addressed it and let the game end. So I think that was probably the right way to do it. But uh, I want to know, how nervous were you during that last
Oh,
play?
oh,
That
I
went on
couldn't,
far
I
too long.
couldn't, I couldn't breathe until the game was officially ruled over. Even with the penalty and everything, I'm thinking, oh no, did we like hit somebody with a targeting penalty? They're gonna get the ball at the 45-yard line, throw a Hail Mary. I mean, who knows? On plays like that, it's just insanity happens. And so, yeah, I was terrified watching, just thinking the BYU played it well. I think they played it well. They didn't over pursue. They didn't allow them to set up a wall. There were a couple minutes where Utah looks like they were going to get something set up, and it was intense. And I've seen enough replays of some of the other schools. I think Duke or Miami did one, 10 years ago where they scored a touchdown like that, and it's never over till it's over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. The Cow Bears and the band and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Shoot. So 1-2 says, I see reports that Kyle did not shake Kalani's hand after the game. Shameful. If that's true,
Uh,
that's
so
wild.
So Whittingham was walking on the field to shake his hand. I don't know, something might have happened with all the chaos at the end, and I know we like to hate on Witt as BYU fans, but he and Kalani have a close relationship. I'd be surprised if
Right.
something like that happened.
Well, me too. And after Kalani goes out of his way to kind of defend Utah and kind of to put water on the rivalry
Yeah,
as much as
yeah.
possible, that would shock me because I think Kalani's been really classy about it. I mean, the most I
Hmm.
saw was on when Fox came and they were asking him about about booing Urban Meyer or something. And he was like, it's a rivalry, and he kind of grinned. That was like the most like I'd ever seen. Like,
Yeah,
you get it out of him in terms of
yeah.
it was almost felt like permission from Kalani. It's like, okay, yeah, we can hit on Utah a little bit, but yeah. So I would have been surprised too if that's the case. But if it is true, then I mean, it's really crazy. Spencer Rick says heaven is full of Ute tears uh, today. Definitely for sure. So. Stephen McNeely, Ute tears are extra salty. They seem to be tonight. So
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry, they'll get used to it. We've had, like I said, we've had our share, right? Follow that grief cycle. It'll happen. You'll heal. We'll commiserate together. We've had some tough years, and this one's a tough one for Utah. I mean, no matter how you cut it, that is a biting loss. When that's about as close to victory as you get, and still losing.
Yeah. And then Benjamin Vandenberg. Oh, it jumped on me here. Sorry, says, LOL, I love it when we win. Um, Followed up with Utah fans get so pressed. And absolutely. And then here we've got Oaksterhawk, kind of odd BYU fans talking smack about Utah QB age. Yeah, I kind of
That
agree.
is true.
People go pretty
That's
heavy on
100%
Cam
true.
Rising. Well, not most of our quarterbacks. Taysom Hill is the one that comes to mind. He was
I
also
don't know, man. With the mission age in there, they're all like 24, 25 when they're seniors, and so yeah, BYU's got older quarterbacks than almost anybody else in the country.
yeah, but Utah gets very defensive about it. But anyway, yeah. But Cam Rising did it, and I think he's older than Taysom was, or at least close in age. And there's no 2-year mission in there. But
Yeah, he's
so
up there.
and Taysom had plenty of injuries too. So let's see. Teacup Gang, anyone have a link to the Utes channel, live reaction? Sorry, don't have one. But appreciate you joining in with us. And then Scott Mansfield with the super chat. Thank you. He says, you guys deserve the super chat. Thanks. The Holy War ended on Sunday. Holy War win was given a holy blessing on a holy day. That's true. So if it had just ended on Saturday, maybe it would have been Cold War. But since it ended on Sunday. All right. And then we got to go to bed here. This is the last one from 1-2, but he says Utah scored 0 in the second half. Nothing to do with controversial call. Why do they think they are entitled to a win after punt, interception, punt, 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 punt? I think I caught all those punts in there, but yeah, absolutely. So it is late. Hopefully everyone's nerves have calmed down. I feel better already. I feel like we've vented, got out of our system a little bit. The edge is off, and I think I can breathe a sigh of relief and just now fully appreciate. We came away with the win 9-0, and now on to the next one. So, any final thoughts there, Adam?
Soak it up. This one's awesome. You don't get many seasons like this. You don't get many victories like this. So this is a good one. Enjoy every second of it.
Yeah, this is going to be something that we'll see where Jake Retzlaff ultimately ends up in the pantheon of BYU QBs, but this is something that's definitely going to be in there to cement, definitely cement him there as definitely, I don't know, one that's, I mean, with this season and with that game and beating Utah, he's definitely in the conversation he's moving up the ranks.
He's building a legacy. He is. And I know he doesn't have the jaw-dropping stats that some of the others do, but you quarterback a team like this, and you have some of these moments like Oklahoma State and this drive to set up the field goal. He's climbing that tall mountain of great BYU quarterbacks. And I don't know that he's necessarily in the discussion with some of the greats, but he looks like he's intent on putting his name up there.
But he's doing all he can. Last one from Benjamin Vandenberg says Trump wins and now this life is good. I'm reading this because as I was watching the game, I was blaming all the Republican BYU fans for using up all our good luck earlier in the week, and I was blaming all the Democrat BYU fans for all their bad attitude carrying over. So either way, I was blaming both sides. This was on everybody. I was trying to put some rhyme to the reason of why BYU, things were going wrong, but it all came together in the end. So whichever side, however you felt about earlier in the week, this is what really matters here is that BYU won. So, all right, Adam, go get some sleep. And as always, guys, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.